So welcome everybody. As you've already heard, my name's Simone Hume. I work for AWS. My primary role is to work with organisations such as yourselves migrate to the cloud with AWS in essence. I'm really delighted to see so many of you here today, especially those that have been here for a couple of days, so I'm sure you're glad it's Friday as well. So I'm going to try and stick to time and keep us off to a good start for the rest of the week. But since we're 5 minutes late, I don't know if I can get us back on time, but we'll see. So basically, the aim of my presentation today is to focus on 3 recommendations from the Wachter Report, hopefully I've said that correctly, where AWS can add value to deliver healthcare's triple aim, which is better health, better healthcare at lower cost. To take you through briefly the agenda, we're going to touch today on the Wachter review, context and why digital, and what's in that review. We're going to focus primarily on 3 of recommendations and the benefits. Then we're going to touch on security and compliance. Now, I will spend a little bit of time on that, but I'm conscious that you're going to be hearing from Martin after me, who's going to actually delve quite deeply into the compliance side. And then we're going to just summarise and around the key benefits towards the end. Questions and answers at the end, if you don't mind, just so that we can keep on time. And hopefully that's okay with everybody. So many of you in this room will be familiar with the Wachter review and the 10 recommendations that it actually made about how and why the NHS can be digitised. These are the 3 recommendations that we're going to focus on today. Before we start talking about AWS and going deep into those recommendations, let's just raise our head above the parapet for a moment, the technology parapet, and just think about the fact about going digital. Going digital isn't just for the sake of it. It's not the fact that we've got some new toys to play with or that it's cool or funky. It's got a very serious purpose here, and it's to improve patient care for everyone, every one of us to access and uses the NHS. And this is something that we're actually seeing not just in the NHS or organisations going digital, and you'll see later in the presentation some examples, but right across industry and right across the public sector. So NHS aren't alone on this journey, but it is still a significant journey for the NHS. I guess one of the key things that organisations think about before embarking on any journey is why should we actually go digital in the first place? And I think particularly in the NHS, there may be some misgivings as to, here we go again, is this another project? There was a contract between 2002 and 2011. There were certain deliverables that had varying degrees of success, one could say. If we think about things like spine and we think about choose and book. Some areas did have successful projects, some less so successful projects. However, one thing is for sure, in the NHS we still have a lot of patient records, and any one of us that's had the unfortunate task of being in hospital will still see in some incidents that there's trolleys that still come around with all of your patient records. Those patient records with your and my information in them are left unattended for anybody to delve into. And I think really that in itself is a good enough reason to go digital. The other reason to go digital, I think, really importantly, is when our information is locked in paper format, there's quite a lot of really good information about us, but actually it's not shared, and it's not analysed, and it's not helping us look after us better. So the first of the Wachter review recommendations we're going to focus on is number 5. The NHS have basically put forward £4.2 billion in 2016, and that's actually to promote digitisation. And the first phase will be between 2016 and 2019 to those organisations that are either already on the digital journey or are ready to embark on that journey. So that's who's going to get the first phase of the money from a funding perspective. For organisations that we work with that are either on that journey or ready to start that journey, The key question for them, it isn't if they can move to the cloud. For them, the key question is, how fast can I move to the cloud? What can I move to the cloud? And AWS, we have a number of areas where we can support you in terms of moving to the cloud and the benefits of moving to the cloud. Agility is a key benefit. And I'm going to touch on this on the next slide and the next recommendation in more detail. But you have the ability to innovate very, very quickly in the cloud that when you're looking at physical infrastructure, you're not able to do. Cost is another key matter. We look at organisations that move to the cloud. The Navy moved to the cloud and made 60% savings moving to AWS. Elasticity. Elasticity basically means you are going to pay for the computing resources or software in the cloud that only you need, and you're only going to pay for it when you need it. And the other thing is you're going to not be locked into a contract either. So if you find a better cloud service at a better price, yes, you will have to offboard, and that should be part of your thinking process when you're choosing a cloud provider, what's their offboarding policies and what's their onboarding policies. But you can very quickly move to another cloud provider. So there is no contract lock-in. Another area is around breadth of capability. AWS, we started doing cloud services over 10 years ago, if you can believe that, because a lot of organizations are only starting to really offer true cloud services. Our breadth of capability is vast. We've got over 90 services. In 2011, we had something like 80 new services, service enhancements and products. In 2016, we finished the year at 1,017 enhancements and products. So it's significant change. And that rapid speed of innovation and bringing these new services to market are for you, for everybody in this room to access and to use. The other reason for AWS, or another benefit of AWS, is our global reach. So, because some organizations need to have the global footprint. We operate a principle called availability zones and regions. I'll just touch on that briefly so that you understand what it is. A region is a geographic area. So in December, we launched the UK region. And in the region, we have something called availability zones. Availability zones are, we have at least 2 per region. And then each availability zone is made up of a number of physical data centers. Each availability zone has its own risk profile. So no 2 availability zones will have the same risk profile, so that we're helping you build for resiliency and fault, basically. We have 16 regions globally. We brought the UK on live in December. We're bringing on live France and another one in China. And those 2 will have alone 5 availability zones. We've also got things called points of presence, which may come up in some of the discussions with you, particularly when we talk around connectivity. We have 68 points of presence globally. So we have a lot of reach, a lot of services, and so we have a really deep and wide portfolio of services. So if you're one of these organizations that wants to take advantage of this funding, and you are ready to move to the cloud, or you're already on that cloud journey to the cloud, what sort of workloads should you be thinking about? Test and development is a really good workload because typically it's totally uncoupled to anything else. It's something that can usually move pretty easily to the cloud. And most organizations are making savings if they're turning their environment off at night when they don't need it, for instance. They can typically make savings of between 60 and 70%. Just for their test and dev environment. So we have people like Lionsgate, Tokyo Stock Exchange. Lionsgate do all their SAP test and development in the cloud. Tokyo Stock Exchange do all of their Oracle test and dev in the cloud. Another workload is then websites and digital. Websites and digital are, again, a really good first workload to come across. We talked about the Navy earlier. They made 60% savings. They actually have 1,700 websites running with AWS. That's how they made that savings. So I need to take a drink because I've got a cold and I'm really thirsty, so bear with me. The other part of that is around data. So once you then, so TfL moved their websites to AWS, that was great. But what TfL did next, I think, was quite special. So TfL took their data and they opened their data to the marketplace. And they said to other developers and people in and around, anybody that's interested basically, come use our data and develop your applications. And now TfL have got over, I think it's over 6,000 developers developing applications on their data, keeping London moving, helping TfL do their job. And they have thousands of applications that they haven't had to pay for or build, but by opening that data, other people have been able to develop these applications and help them do what they're there to do. So I think that's a very interesting case. Going back to the earlier part of my presentation, we talked about our data. I'm not saying that we give our data out to everybody to develop one, but again, if our data is locked away on paper, you can't do anything with it. So another workload then we look at is around mobile. So when a lot of the applications were built for the NHS, most people didn't have like 3 devices. So you might have had a desktop or a laptop, but now people have a desktop, a laptop, a tablet, a mobile phone. And now you need to start thinking about, well, how can I make some of these applications more accessible? So for patients that are maybe housebound or can't get to the hospital easily but want to communicate with the hospital easily or their GP easily, how do you encourage that collaboration from a patient-centric point of view? So mobile, again, is another area. People like Tata and Vodafone basically build their mobile applications on AWS. Another key area is around business critical. Business critical solutions, we are absolutely seeing that trend in the marketplace now. We are seeing Condé Nast is a good example of that, where they put their HR sales, are you okay? Okay. HR, sales and legal services all in the cloud. So these are real critical services to their organization, and they're running them in the cloud. Other workloads, some organizations may be in a position where their data centers are closing down or you're reaching capacity in your data center. Again, that's another way to think about utilizing the cloud for your digital journey. Talking about Condé Nast again, they moved a whole primary data center over to AWS within months. They're making 40% savings, and they've increased their productivity between 30 and 40%. And that's for those critical workloads. And the last area I want to touch on here is really around all in. And what I mean all in is organizations are all in on the cloud, okay? So we have a number of particularly application partners. So there's a number of health partners actually who are Change Healthcare, I've had to write them down because I'll forget their name, Informatica and IMS Health. They've gone all in on the cloud. So everything that they do, their new digital applications have been built using the cloud and the cloud technology. So they can develop very, very quickly, spin up services very quickly to service the community. Looking at the next recommendation, Go Digital by 2023. It's not that far away, is it? It's about 6 years. I think that's quite daunting in one aspect. In the other aspect, I think it's quite exciting, because we have an opportunity to change the way we're doing things today in the NHS. And we can do that a lot by having the ability to use the cloud and use AWS services. So just talking about that a little bit more detail, experimenting quickly. I've worked with government organisations for years. Typically in the past, before cloud services were in the marketplace, it would have taken the government departments anywhere between 12 and 18 months to get a new application stood up, tested, productized and rolled out within an organisation, by which time, typically, it may not have been the right application to roll out because it's taken that long to get to market. Now with cloud, you can actually spin up applications very, very quickly. I worked with a government organisation, actually this particular one was 2 years ago, and they were able to bring a brand new application to market within 6 weeks. They had it rolled out, piloted right through government, all the government departments they were working with, within 10 weeks, and then they were able to go out to the market after 12 weeks of this, to the market to procure this application. That's how quickly these people are able to innovate. One of the reasons that AWS is able to help organisations innovate and be very quick, to experiment quick and fail fast is another buzz phrase you will hear. Fail fast means, do you know what? It's okay to get some of these applications wrong if you do it quickly. If you realise it's not meeting the right requirements quickly, if you develop an application, you test it. If you test it and it's not working, you can then come back and you can start again. But you can do it quickly. If you're doing that in physical infrastructure and find out 12 months down the line that what you've actually created isn't actually delivering what you need, you've spent a lot of time, energy and cost. So one of the main reasons why AWS can do this is because we build automation in the heart of everything that what we do. One of the things we're going to touch on very quickly is around a template that we've actually created. We have these things called quick start templates that enable you to basically spin up environments very quickly. So one of those is we've built around UK official for UK official workloads. And I'm sure we'll touch upon that in a little bit more detail. And the last one is really about learning, support and implementation. Again, this is something that we're seeing right across the marketplace, lack of digital skills, lack of training. How do you deliver these? How do you increase this training? You've got reduced budgets, you've got lots and lots of constraints. In AWS and also with our partners, we have a number of programs, different training programs, where we can help you deliver skills and certifications within your workforce, or our partners can deliver and work with you on. We've also got a vast array of technical blogs and also white papers and information that we can share with you. An example of there would be around the National Cyber Security Centre, security principles. We've got a white paper which shows you how you can architect and align to the security principles. Just touching on security and maintaining compliance. I think some interesting quotes we've seen recently from the MOJ and also from Capital One, basically stating publicly that the security models that they've been able to develop with AWS have actually been more secure than what they had when they had their own data centers. That's quite a profound statement from those organizations, bearing in mind the type of services and data that they hold. So basically, from a security point of view, and I am going to take just 5 more minutes because I was 5 minutes late, if that's okay, because I can see you getting itchy. From a security model, we have something called the shared security model, responsibility model, which very briefly talks around jointly we create the security for your application. We do everything up to the hypervisor, and then the customer or the partner is responsible for everything from the hypervisor above. But we have lots of services that can help you have a very secure environment, okay? And we take security very, very seriously. It's #1 priority for us, and we will work with you to ensure that all aspects of your architecture are well architected and met. With every region we go into, compliance is very, very key for us, and certification. So we basically have certification for IGSOC, compliance, working with our partner. We have ISO 27017, ISO 27018. We have HIPAA, ISO 9001. All of the certifications you would expect an organization to have, we have those certifications. Coming into a region is very important that we understand any local certifications that we would need to have. An example for UK, Cyber Essentials Plus, we have Cyber Essentials Plus for the UK. And Martin's going to go into this in a lot more detail later on. So the last thing I want to touch upon here, again for the UK, is having some form of connectivity. So N3 connectivity is very important. You're going to hear from our partner this afternoon, RedCentric, who we're working with to be able to provide that connectivity. And I won't steal your thunder on HSCN because I think you want to announce that yourselves, but there's a hint. So in summary, We've touched upon 3 key areas. The first one is around how to achieve maximum benefit from digitisation. If you're an organisation and you're ready to go on that digital journey, we're here to support you. Whether that's migrating applications across to the cloud or totally re-energising and re-engineering any applications that you may need to do. We also talked about the fact that 2023 is not that far away, it's 6 years away, but you have got the opportunity to create new applications quickly. And the third thing we talked about was digital learning networks to support implementation improvement. We have a lot of skills and knowledge, and we want to share that knowledge and those skills with you. So in order to do that, and just really in closing, we've got a room full of AWS people at the end of this room. Engage with us. If you want us to come along and do a technical or security workshop with you, just understand your requirements, what you can and can't move to the cloud, then we can do that. If you want to talk about new digital workloads, we can do that. If you want to understand about how to unleash your data and make the most of that data, we can do that. So we have, as I said before, we've got over 90 service offerings, so we have a huge portfolio of stuff that we can help you with. So a workshop, technical or security workshop, that's on offer for anybody that would like to do that. If you want to run a proof of concept, again, that's the type of thing that we can do to support you with as well.